Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for opening. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for coming back to watch my videos. It's an honor to me. If it's your first time meeting me, my name is Ransom Nyema. I'm a fourth year radiography student, and apart from my studies, I'm also a proficient freelance medical content writer. I write a lot of articles, medical blog content, medical educational content materials, patient care materials, social media content, for a couple of companies I've worked with and a couple of clients I've worked with. So today I have an amazing guest speaker all the way from the UK. Hey, Adan, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
But thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much for your kind words as well. Adan Khan, and I'm also a fellow medical student as well, studying in the UK. And I've just been fortunate enough to be able to be part of a different variety of both organizations and activities that not only do I personally resonate with, but has a greater impact either via that be from publications or just the impressions and overall engagement that they're able to receive. But more than happy to be here.
Amazing. Thank you so much for introducing yourself, Adam. So we have a couple of questions for you to answer. You ready?
Yep, go for it.
All right. So even looking downwards, I'm reading the questions to Adam. So you guys been wondering what was Ransom looking downwards for? I'm looking downwards, reading the questions to him. All right. So the first question goes this way: how did your experience as a medical student, influence your international health work at World Health Organization? Tell us.
I suppose that actually started way back when I initially started medical school. Now, I started it at peak COVID. So that's when they started doing the lockdown situation in the UK. And now, quite historically now, in the UK, the lockdown situation started quite later in comparison to quite a few of the other countries. Um, and because of that, it was slightly more prolonged as well. But because at that time I was a medical student, even though recently joined university, it allowed me to still be able to go out in placements when placements started because I was considered a key worker. Now, that actually started the whole idea of, okay, maybe I can document my experiences, my journey of what I'm up to. Maybe mainly because I was in the fortunate position to be able to go out while everyone was still stuck at home, in other words. And I started that in YouTube as a to be able to, like, just share anyone who was interested at their home to be able to just journey along and be able to experience anything that I do as well, so that at the very least they could feel in some regard that they're there. And through that, over the years, that evolved through different sorts of content, both in video content, either sharing that in voices through YouTube Reels, now more recently through TikTok as well. But now also evolving into more written based content, such as the articles that I've recently done. But what has happened as well is because I was able to be more socially, let's say digitally, um, presence, what it allowed me to have a track record of all of the things I've been up to, all of the engagement that I've done, all of the activities that I've done. And that then actually led me to be able to, it goes back to the idea of having having your own personal branding and be able to showcase it. And the idea of that is if you're doing things that you already like, and if you're doing things that you already are taking part in, and you're just documenting it, that's a hand in hand experience that you're showing proof of your work just at the end of the day. And when I came across one of the groups called from WHO, World Health Organization, Fides, uh, they were more so a community of healthcare professionals to be able to make sure that as much of a misinformation that's there digitally in social media or anywhere else, they're able to tackle it as professionally as possible to be able to make sure that the right information is given to the people, without any confusion, without any sort of you know uh, further conflict appearing as well. And when I applied to it, because they were able to see the track record of me being able to not only be engaging with the community that I've built, but also have a health related record of digital presence, I was able to then be part of the WHO Fides community, which then only enabled me to not only excel and make sure that the whole epidemic is an epidemic in itself of misinformation can be tackled more professionally with the tools and the necessary equipment that I can have, which wasn't available to me before. But that has then allowed me to not only, as a result, be more efficient, so I can actually dedicate more time or be able to be come across more sorts of content in the same amount of time, which I was not able to do before, or be able to then engage with other members of the community, which I didn't realize there's a whole global network of people doing the same thing. Because at that time when I started, there wasn't as many people doing it, but over the time now it's grown a lot more. But that's the whole gist of my experience as being a medical student, um, working in a such an international group.
I can only imagine the number of experiences you've gained or you've acquired working with the World Health Organization. It's incredible. Thank you so much for explaining and telling us about your experiences as a medical student, and how it's influenced you working with, World Health Organization. So thank you so much for that. So the second question goes this way. So before I ask you the second question, could you just talk us through your specialization in medicine and the school you're studying right now?
So I study in Kenton Medway Medical School. That's a collaboration between University of Kent and Canterbury Christchurch University. It's one of the newer schools in the UK. Um, it's located in Kent as well, which is give or take 30 to 40 minutes by drive from London. And being a Londoner, I wanted to also choose one of the universities that's close to home. So it's a bit more of a manageable drive as well if I ever wanted to come back. So hence that, one of the reasons why I chose the medical school. In terms of the specialization, a lot of people ask me that question in terms of what specialty you would like to go into. I usually say, oh, there's still quite a few number of years left for me to decide. Um, but this it has now gotten become more academically oriented or research oriented in the sense that, and this is again being fortunate about from being able to have such academic mentors or scholarly um, researchers who are able to help me in which direction I would like to go to. Um, there is a term or a certain qualification called PhD by publication, where it goes by the idea that, oh, if you have enough scholarly activity or publications to which equates to PhD, even if you have graduated with only a bachelor's, you can apply for it. Do 6 months if you want to do it full time, or 1 year if you want to do it part time, and you can do that while working if you decide to go for it part time. And the idea is that if you have research or scholarly work um, published all within the field, it has to be, that's the criteria. One, it has to be within one certain field. Then be able to get a PhD publication out of it. They will then equate all of that and consider that because you've already done majority of the scholarly work, there's no need for you to be able to then take a 3 year PhD route from it. All you then have to do is within the 6 months or the 1 year, write a thesis and be able to, by the end of it, get a PhD by publication out of it. So that's the route I would like to take. Now, that also hugely depends on, okay, quite early on what specialty do I would I like to go with, because I'm personally quite an academic person. And based on just both what my interests are and the way the world has now evolved. I would say it's, and this isn't really a specialty or a clinical specialty in itself, but the field of AI or digital innovation is one of the things that I would like to get into. And the good thing and the benefit for my end is that there's lots of, especially in the UK, fellowships that have started cropping up that even junior doctors can get into, which are more so AI driven or health innovation driven. So that is something that I would like to get into after I graduate, in terms of something I would like to pursue, whether that be both in an academic field, such as the PhD publication that I mentioned, or more so in a clinical route, such as the fellowships uh, that are actually coming up. And hopefully, by the time I graduate, they even more of an awareness there, where to the point where it's actually more widely renowned, so a lot more people can also take advantage of it. Hope that was able to answer the question.
Yeah, that route you're going for, in specialization is gonna help you because at least you
Mm,
haven't prior experiences on that. So I wish you the best in your
mm,
endeavors. So that draws me to the next question for you. So as someone who works to promote diversity in the medical community, what strategies do you think are most effective in promoting inclusion and representation?
mm,
Talk us through.
yeah. So I think promoting inclusion and being able to just represent everyone is a demanding issue which anyone anywhere can face. And it's to the point where when even in lectures such as the such, for example, studying biochemistry, my lecturers who have done their own drug trials have their own experience to the point where they said, "Oh yeah, we were doing a drug test, which was really helpful. It was, you know, effective with all populations of demographics. However, once it was released, once everyone was using it, they realized that one specific demographic of people, which are quite um, native to their own geography, that it does the opposite effect to, and that had to, as an adverse effect, make them recall the medication, which is like the worst thing you can do in the drug industry. So they had to recall the medication and also redo the whole trial, which is not only the fact that okay, people who the medication who it was working for, they can't take it anymore. They have to wait further for the drug trial, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, it actually gets back to market. So it has to, outside of research, outside of of being able to just for the sake of being included, it has wider implications that I mean everyone can get affected with it, because sure, one demographic of people may not be able to have it, so you just not have to advertise it, but the fact that it's not widely available for everyone just means that these things have to be considered from the get go, and you have to make sure that it's as risk averse as possible. In terms of promoting diversity within the medical community, which is a bit more of a relaxed environment to what I've just compared it with, I think there is a granted that the whole field of medicine, I mean, it is one of the cardinal fields, anyways, that a lot of people have historically getting into, whether that be because of you know just the nature of medicine or what it brings. But the fact that you have to make sure that it's accessible still is one of the important things. And having done so, this goes to my experience with running DIMA, Diversity in Medical Academia. It's an organization that I self co founded with another friend of mine. And what we aim to do there is make sure that it's promoting people. It's essentially irrelevant of the buzzwords such as diversity or inclusion, our main motto is anyone who is interested in medical education or medical research, but do not know where to start or have started but not sure how to finish and get a tangible outcome out of it, yeah, we provide the resource for them and we provide the support for them. So, it, that hugely then reflects on the idea that anyone who needs help, anyone who needs the support, irrelevant of what their social economic background is, what their geography is, what their background is, at the end of the day, they can get the support of it. And I think that is the end result of what everyone wants to achieve, anyways, when they say they promote diversity and make sure that they're inclusive. So I think, yeah, if we start talking about more so, okay, how can we make sure that we are able to support two people whenever they need, irrelevant of what they're supposed to do. And of course, at the same time, that also means that there might be some tailored approach to things. What might be more so uh, relevant to one certain person might not be relevant to the other. But it's also the idea that, oh, if you're able to have an all inclusive environment, then that is able to be more achieved. Because I'll give you one example from what I'm coming across. The first event that we did with DIMA, we were hoping that, okay, because it's a first event, we only were live a couple of months, the organization. We thought that not a lot of people would come, even though we were publicizing it to our friends through our social media. So far, 25 people registered for the event. We were like, okay, yeah, that's a healthy number for the first event. A couple of days before the event itself, we got an email saying that, oh, you need to increase your cap because you've already reached your max registration limit. So we increased it from 50 to 100. A couple of hours after, we got the same email again. We increased it to 100 to 150, to the point where just hours before the event, we had to increase it to 250 people because the demand for it was there. And surprisingly, it was just, people just wanted help and support, and it was just a not even a specialized course or webinar. It was just a research 101 where we wanted to talk to you what different kinds of research is out there as any medical student, and how you can get involved in different kinds of research. What are the criteria? Do you even need a supervisor for some research? And I had a mixture of people. Again, this is irrelevant of what their background was. Years ones and year five, even year five students saying that, oh, I didn't know you could do research this way, or I didn't know you don't always need a supervisor for it. And that just confirmed that, okay, where there is a demand, there has to be some sort of a access, and the moment you make it accessible, uh, by that's already one of the ways in which it makes it inclusive. So I think that's a long-winded answer to your question there.
I want to get something straight.
Yeah.
When you work to promote diversity in the medical community, which is an amazing stuff to do as a med student, can I ask you something?
Mhm.
Do you have a base, like, whenever you're promoting diversity, do you consider about the gender based exploitation? What do you have to say about that?
The gender-based exploitation. Could you tell me what you mean by that, please?
Just like just like, do you know Joe Belville, the medical mind buster? You know him?
Oh yes, yeah, is the American medical student, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He talks about like the gender based, like the blacks, like the whites,
yeah.
difference in coloration. So that's what I meant by, do your work extend to that level of different coloration in humans, like for the blacks and for the whites?
Right. Okay. I see. Yeah, I see. So we have started work on that. So initially, um, And this outside of just color. So we what we started to do was, even though we weren't explicitly saying that, oh, we're only for medical students, what happened is, because we started in COVID as well, we were completely online and we were completely free. That allowed not only medical students but also nursing students, physiotherapists, to also join. Even because the idea was anyone who's interested in medical field. And because we kept it online, not only from the UK but also from the outside of other countries also started coming in as well, more predominantly Asia and also Africa as well. And that then made us realize that we sitting in the UK, even if so I'm in the England, right, which is geographically in the south, I would not be able to be as much of a representative to someone who attends in Scotland, because their whole cultural and their whole demands is completely different. So what we then started to do was create a whole another campaign called DIMA Ambassadors, where you can then be a ambassador of DIMA and basically bring DIMA to your campus. And the trigger of that is then, because you know your own demographic better, because you know your peers better, you know your whole what the actual criteria is that they actually want to focus on, you can then bring it to us so that we can have a bit more of a tailored approach to them. And ever since then, we are able to then expand to multiple ambassadors, where the ambassadors are basically taking the lead of what the focus group is, based on what their peers are demanding for, what they are specifically looking for themselves. Because doing a publication and getting research is more than one, but if you don't even have the resources for it, you're not able to get the first step ready. So a lot of it is also depending on creating offline products at the same time, rather than just creating online webinars at the same time, irrelevant of whether if it's free or not. So it's just able to understand what that need is, and that need is only then able to come from our ambassadors, which I think one of the key steps that we were able to take place, because we were able to only recognize that, oh, it's people outside of the UK are also watching this.
Yeah, I know something that setting up webinars that online and offline are not really that easy.
Yeah,
But it's amazing that you guys are really working towards that aspect I talked about, which is amazing. So kudos to all of you and your team. So you guys are really doing an amazing job. So that draws me to the next question for you. W- How do you balance your role as a clinical scientist at the clinical research group, right? And your role as a YouTube content creator. How do you balance those equations?
yeah. So I think at the end of the day, it's all down to prioritization. And it's easy for me to say it's, oh, I'm just prioritizing the things I like to do, but it's hugely depend. These are the things I enjoy doing. So irrelevant of whether if it's 12 in the midnight, I'll still be able to at least spend another half an hour at the things I like doing, because I like doing it as simple as possible. Um, but outside of that intrinsic factor, there's also other extrinsic factors that you also have to account for that just make things easier overall. And I would say that's down to two things. One is communication, and the second is teamwork, which both go hand in hand together. But let me talk about communication first. So it's the idea that, you know, not only are you able to communicate with two other people to say, oh, what's been happening, what you like to teach. So just simply put, everyone is kept in the loop of everything and what the updates are. So, chances are you don't do double work, or you do it as effectively as possible, because simply because you've been able to communicate with everyone. But what I mean by teamwork, it's not just simply as how well do you work with together with the team. Sure, there is an element to it, but finding a team to begin with is also equally as important. So it is a whole quote in itself. If you want to go fast, you go solo. But if you want to go far, you work with someone. So it's the whole idea that think about it in the long term as well. Are you able to mentally sustain it, even if you're able to do it now? And this is why it's a hugely important thing that, for example, in the clinical research group, I'm fortunate to be able to be part of that group because it's about 100 or so people, all international people, mixture of students as well as lecturers and professors. And they're not all medical students. Some are engineers, some are uh, data scientists as well, to be able to then focus on exactly what their field is. So if there is a paper that's required to do more data analysis, I'm not going to sit the whole afternoon or the next few days just to do the data analysis when I can easily hand it over to someone else who's more expert at it and be able to spend a lot less time than I can. Um, and that's benefit for the overall team because that means that we can get the project done a lot faster than if I just say, no, okay, I'll do it myself. Um, Same thing with the YouTube content creator side of things. It's for that one. There's lots of systems you can use as well. So I predominantly use the batching system. It's the idea that I can then, if I sit down, let's say I've recorded everything, I published everything, there's nothing now left in the reservoir. I will then sit down, dedicate, let's say, one day on just doing draft or scripting. On that particular day, then, rather than just doing one draft, then recording it, then editing it, and then doing any art or graphic needed for the thumbnails, and then publishing it, I batch those steps into all together at once. So if I'm scripting something, I'll not just script one thing, I'll script several videos and just focus on that entirely on just scripting. Then let's say I can have 10 scripts by the end of the day. I can then record, and I don't just record one video. I will then record multiple videos on that same particular day because I've already got the setup ready. I've already, in the mood to record. It's a lot easier for me to then go on to the next recording than to pack up everything and start editing. The next day, I'll do the same thing. I'll just edit all of the videos all together. It might make take me multiple days, but it's the idea that I'm just editing at that stage, and then move on to the publishing of any final work. So that's the system that works for me. It might not work for everyone, but this is just from experience that I would say that both in terms of balancing, but also making sure I just keep my sanity in terms of juggling the different tasks that happens.
Amazing, amazing. Um, Prioritizing your sanity is very important.
Yeah.
In everything you do. Um, Nothing is worth your mental health. Nothing. Even your med school or wherever you work is not worth your mental health. So
Mm.
learn how to prioritize your mental health. So Adam, thank you so much for talking us through on how you balance your role, as a clinical scientist at the clinical research group
Mm.
and your role as a YouTube content creator. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Um, like you said, your strategies might not help others, but it might help others in some ways if they follow such patterns. So we have the last question for you. You've been an amazing guest speaker. So to wrap up the session, we have the last question for you. So the last question says, what inspired you to create educational content on YouTube? And what do you think are the most difficult problems facing the healthcare workers in general? Tell us.
Mm. Yeah. So why YouTube? I think that's the big question in terms of I think whenever I was in A levels or in high school, I always used to watch YouTube anyways. So that was the go-to, um, way in which I used to spend time. And back in those days, there were a couple of medical students already who were doing this. Only a couple, but when they started, they were actually doing it quite properly, and they were focusing on the educational side of things as well. And that instantly drew me as well, mainly because, as I mentioned, I like to think that I'm an academic. I'm quite interested in the academia side of the medicine as well. Um, so it's one of the aspects as to why I decided to do educational content. But it's also one of the other things that if you want to showcase any sort of content of quality that you can produce, irrelevant of who you are, always target someone who's 2 to 3 years younger than you. So, for example, if you're in year 4 of medicine, target someone who's target your content, irrelevant of what the content is, whether that be videos, articles, quizzes, to year ones, twos, mainly because you have recently just been through what they had to do. And they are more likely to then say yes to you versus some professor who's been teaching at your institute for 30, 40 years. Mainly because you're not only a recent graduate, but you're a lot more approachable. So you would know what they have been through, what the struggles are, what the pain points are, as they say, and focus on exactly how to memorize it, what acronyms, what mnemonics you used yourself. So that just makes things a lot easier for anyone if they go with that mindset. Oh, I'm just targeting to someone who's a few years younger than me. And that means that anyone can start at any age then. Even if you're not pre-university, if you're in A levels, you can then start targeting GCSE students. If you're in GCSE, you can start targeting anyone who wants to do 11 plus, which is one of the exams you have to do to get into a grammar school in the UK. Um, so it's just those type of things that you just draw from your experience to be able to then showcase, okay, these are the things that you do. And you may think, oh, yeah, but this is really simple. Why would I make content out of this? Why would I generate some sort of value from it? Yeah, but that's the other assumption you should never make. What might be simple to you might not be simple to someone else. What might be something that's just boring, mainly because you know it, may not be the same thing that someone else may know it or have that sort of approach to you. If you think about it, it became easy because you worked on it, and you're just allowing other people to be able to experience your experience and what you learned from it a lot faster, mainly because you're the one sharing it, and as a result, people then trust you and come back to you, and then that's how our community is as a result built. That's a very simple explanation of why I initially got started, why anyone would like to get started. But why YouTube? I think it goes back to the same idea that you're putting yourself out there, you're putting your face there. It's a lot simpler to be able to then say, "Oh, I know this person because I've seen their face." It just makes things when people put faces to whatever the text is or whatever the information, it just makes it a bit more human at the end of the day. And that's one of the reasons why I started to do YouTube rather than articles or anything else. Because, as I mentioned, I started YouTube back in COVID, and that just made me think that okay, if I'm bringing someone along and I'm just documenting someone's journey, I'll just become their friend, and what at least I hope that's the experience I gave. That whenever they watched my videos back in the COVID days, I wanted to make them feel that they're there with me, and they're just experiencing this with a friend. Um, but yeah, that's the overall gist of it, really.
Wow, that was so sensational. Well, thank you so much, Adan. You've been an amazing guest speaker, and thank you so much for sharing your initiatives and these questions for the audience to get enlightened. So, before we wrap up the session, what are your last words for the audience?
Well, first of all, thank you very much again for having me. it was a great conversation as well, and just to be able to um, just have a talking point to see what I've been up to, really. Um, for anyone who's watching, I'm sure there will be either medical oriented people or people who want to get into medicine. I would say that it's hard, but it's if this is something that you're passionate about, then just go for it. Even if it's hard, you'll just have support system in place, family, friends that you'll meet, and you'll be make up once you get into university, or the friends that you already have, whether you're in high school or already in university. Just, you know, reach out to someone if you actually do need help. Because if you're in medicine and you've in university, that means you already made it. That means you're worth your time. Just, you know, everyone needs help. Just that's just the nature of medicine. It gets the better
Ab-
of everyone. Yeah,
Absolutely. I do
yeah.
agree 100%. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Adan, for hopping on. And so we've come to the end of the session. If you love this content, do well to subscribe, like, share to your network. Hopefully, someone in your network will greatly adore this video. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.